Blessed are you, O Lord, teach me your statutes. The choir of the saints has found the fountain of life and the door of paradise. May I also find the way through repentance. I am the sheep that was lost. Call me up to you, O Savior, and save me.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Steadfast Godcast. My name is Crisco and my guest today is the parish priest of St. John the Baptist, Serbian Orthodox Church in Wollongong, New South Wales. He is the very Reverend Father Branco Bosancic. I hope I got that right, Bosancic. Father, how are you?
Bosancic, good.
How you going?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you, Crisco?
I'm very good, Father. I got you on here because, just to pick your brain and talk a little bit about, Orthodoxy in light of other New Age religions. But before we start, Father, could you please lead us into prayer?
Yes, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. O Heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of Truth, who are everywhere present and filling all things, treasury of blessings and giver of life, come and dwell in us, and cleanse us of all impurity, and save our souls, O Good One. Amen.
Amen, Father. Thank you very much for that. So, Father, could you just, for people that don't know you, just let us know a little bit about your background and how you actually became an Orthodox priest?
Look, I come from the Serbian part of Bosnia. That was, there was old Yugoslavia. For those of you who are of age to remember that old country there in southeastern Europe, and it fell apart during the 90s. So I was born I was born in 1981. So I kind of remember as a kid still that kind of old country, and then war broke apart. So I kind of grew up in during the war there. Um, my family, my immediate family, like my parents, were never devout. They never went to church. My mother wasn't even baptized, and both my brother and myself, we were not baptized. But however, my grandparents were very devout Orthodox Christians, and which was very unpopular, like it is today in the society where we live. It's not really popular to go to church. I mean, you can say you believe in God, you're religious, you're spiritual, and this and that. But if the moment you say you go to church, I think all the doors shut. They're kind of closed.
Yeah.
And so that was the case with my grandparents. It wasn't really popular, but they did uphold to the Orthodox Christian traditions, and not just the traditions. I wanted to say how they understood faith so seriously. It wasn't like a hobby. Like you have people who kind of they say, oh, I go to Easter, Christmas, a few times a year to church, and I'm an Orthodox Christian, and that kind of reminds me of of a hobby that it's one part of your life that you kind of do from time to time, and that's it when you get the time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that for my grandparents, really. I still vividly remember a scene where when I was maybe 7 years of age. I can't really remember. I think I just started school, and so I was at my grandparents' house, and I was looking for my grandmother, and I couldn't find her anywhere in the backyard. So I went into the house, and so I was looking for her, and I couldn't find her anywhere. So I'm going into my grandparents' bedroom, and that's a no. If you know anything about, I think it's about this old European culture. You can't, you don't go there, and a kid is not allowed to go there. But I needed something. I can't even remember what I needed. So I'm entering into the room, and I could see my grandmother was wearing always black, and she's standing still in front of what I later realized, in front of an icon. And I'm calling her, grandma, and and she's not moving, she's not responding. Oh my God, what thoughts went through my mind? And you can just imagine a child that was growing up on all these new age cartoons in Hollywoods and this and that, and I thought my grandmother was a witch, or and this witch came and took her, and and this is someone new, and I can't recognize who. But this is really the point, what I'm trying to say. After maybe 5 minutes, or I don't know how after some some time, she's coming out of the room, because I just opened the door and I shut the door, because I opened the door and I was calling her, but as she wasn't responding, I just shut the door and I was scared. I was deadly scared.
You're freaking
And I
out.
went thinking, I had all these weird thoughts, and she's coming out after 5-10 minutes. I don't know. It looked like 20 years for me, and she says, "You know what? I'm praying, and when I'm praying, I'm not interrupting my prayers. So please do not interrupt me." And then she explained to me. She took because we had these all small little calendars, church calendars, and you have basic prayers there, and she knew these prayers, not even in Serbian, the spoken language, but in old church Slavonic language. Yeah. And she kind of taught me these prayers, and she said, whenever you're in distress, whenever you're afraid or scared, say a prayer to Bogorodica, to the Virgin Mary, to the Theotokos, and the Lord's Prayer and the Creed, and she taught me all of that, and I was fascinated. What struck me most, and I have to emphasize this really, is how seriously they took their faith, my grandparents, especially my grandmother. And I think that's the most important thing. So later in life, this was something, how I grew up. I wasn't baptized, but as I said, later on, when I was 16 years of age, I was baptized as a teenager, because I loved the church. I was going with my grandfather to church, and you have these magnificent choirs, as we have them in our Slavic tradition, and it was just stunning and amazing. And I joined the choir, and so I got baptized, and I was then I was studying. I wanted to be veterinarian, so I'm a veterinarian nurse, what you would call here, but I never practiced that, because at the end I decided I'm not going to do that, because it's not about animals and helping animals. It's pretty much about egotistic human needs. So I decided, no, I'm not going to go after that. I'm going to study theology. And so that's how I started. There is also few things about that, how I couldn't actually enroll into the University of Belgrade to study theology, and there was a finger of God there as well. But I'm not gonna go into these details. Anyways, when I was studying, I met few people here, few Serbian people, students from Australia studying with me there in Belgrade. And when I heard stories and this and that, and I said, I'm never going to go into diaspora to be a priest. I wanted to be a priest, but not in diaspora, what we call it. But yeah, as we say in Serbian, a Turk did not say God willing, so I did not say God willing.
That's good.
The Turks have done everything, but they have not said God willing. So that's pretty much my position there. Eventually I ended up here in Australia. A former bishop here in kind of called me to be there, and then I lived in Sydney for 4 years, close to 4 years, and then I became parish priest here in Wollongong. And so this is my 10th year. Yeah, it's going to be 2022. It's going to be 10 years since I'm here in Wollongong, and I love it. I really enjoy it. So
why wouldn't you enjoy it? You're where the water is there, South Coast. Beautiful part of the world.
Absolutely magnificent.
Awesome. But today's topic is, like we said before, just orthodoxy in the light of like the New Age religions. And we might do a couple of questions and answers at the end there. But Father, if you wouldn't mind just explaining a little bit about orthodoxy in light of the New Age religions.
Yeah, well, whenever we're dealing with other religions, we have to avoid two extremes. One is this approach that I would call it maximism or exclusivism, where we are to say we are right and everyone else is wrong, we can't possibly do that because there is, too many things we have in common. And the other thing is it actually causes violence, because if we go into that maximism or exclusivism, then that kind of provokes violence, because if I'm the only one that's right, then I'm gonna it causes violence. I'm gonna fight for it and so on, and it's not true, because there is we do share certain things even with the New Age, and I will argue why a bit later. And the other extreme that we absolutely have to avoid is minimalism or inclusivism, which is very popular, as you would know, in today's world. It's and that's the view that says, oh, all the religions are the same. We're all climbing the same mountaintop. We're just using different paths and this and that, which is, that's not true. That's not true. You can't say that all religions, because they're not. And so New Age religions, because that's a new term, but it's an old heresy. Okay, it's the longest lasting heresy in the history of the church, and it was known in the 2nd century as Gnosticism. So, and one of the earliest fathers of the church, Saint Irenaeus of Lyon, was fighting it. I mean, I recommend you and your viewers and those who are watching this, take Saint Irenaeus of Lyon and Against the Heresies. That's his book, Adversus Heresies. His opponent was Marcion. And Marcion, okay, first of all, what is Gnosticism? It comes from the Greek word gnosis, which means knowledge. And so there is this ism. So it emphasizes knowledge. It says pretty much there is this not just distinction between the spiritual and material reality, but there is a confrontation between the spiritual and material reality. And so there is various levels of spiritual levels, of spiritual realities. And so the highest spiritual reality is good. And then from this high spiritual reality are emerging other spiritual realities, lower. And then the lowest possible produces this material world, this matter. And so we are now in this. Why is this similar now to the new age religions? I'll come to that during my discussion. But the point is that this material world is bad, and so it has to be not just overcome. You can't just overcome it. You have to neglect that one. You have to. It is bad. It is bad by its nature, and this was opposed by Irenaeus of Lyon, who said, no. Marcion was claiming, based on this Gnostic idea that he had, that the Old Testament is a product of this tough God that has created this rough world, fallen world, and it's a product of this fallen God. However, the New Testament is a true God, and so we are to totally we don't need the Old Testament. That's what Marcion was saying. And we only need New Testament. Even Marcion was saying that we need only certain parts of New Testament, because he found that even certain parts of the New Testament were problematic. Irenaeus is claiming this is the Messiah, the promised one, that was prophesied by all the prophets and of the Old Testament, and Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament. And based on that view, he says, and many times in Irenaeus' book Against the Heresies, he's mentioning, you see words like body, matter, and that's good, and that's good, and it's good, which is true. So he's not saying that we need to abolish the body and matter it needs to be saved. So body and matter needs salvation. Now, what does this have to do with the New Age religions? Well, New Age religions, pretty much, if you go even to the magical, if sorceress or some sort of a witchcraft or horoscope, they're all making this not difference and distinction, but there is this confrontation between the matter and the spiritual. And so you can find certain traces of this higher level of spiritual reality in this material world. And what's also very important for Gnosticism, and why Gnosticism was so attractive and still is, because it's about knowledge of one small group of people. Oh, we know, we have the knowledge, and you know nothing about this. And so come and join our small group, and then you'll find that the true knowledge of the things that are surpassing this reality, not just surpassing, but this reality is nothing. You have to you have to remove this reality. You have to abolish this reality. Body is nothing, matter is nothing. We're going, and this is very visible in movies like Star Wars. You can see traces of that, of Gnosticism, everywhere around our culture. In Hollywood movies, Hollywood spirituality is purely Gnostic spirituality, and this world is pure. Whenever you see people speaking about spirituality, and this is nothing new for Orthodox Christianity. We are the longest and the oldest intellectual tradition in the Western world. So we know all about that, and we should. If we don't, we should. What Gnosticism, what New Age religions have taken, for example, the temples. They have taken Christian language, Christian words, and they've just reduced the meaning of these words, the terminology. They've reduced the terminology to only one part of it, and you can see it in architecture. You can see it in the way that, for example, Lomonosov University in Moscow was built. It was built as a Babylon, as one of the temples in Babylon. You can see how modern shopping centers are made. It's like those old pagan temples. And so there is, and I'm saying there is something Christian in it. That's why I'm saying we cannot be exclusivist and say, there is nothing true in it. If you delve deeper, you will find that there is bits and pieces of truth in it. Okay, and that's why it is so attractive. Because if it were to be all lie, everyone would realize, say, "Oh, that's rubbish. It's not, that's all lie." But and that's how the devil works, by the way. But that's another kettle of fish. That's another topic for. But there is bits and pieces of truth in it, and that's why people accept it. And also the other reason, it's very simple. Very simple. There is this simple program. This is what you need to do. In horoscope, in magic, you have the formula. You do this, and that. In every part and aspect of New Age religion, as in Gnosticism, you have the program, you have the recipe, pretty much. You follow the recipe and you'll bake the cake.
So you can see, Father, with Gnosticism as well, they've actually obviously had the Gospels as well, Gnostic Gospels, which they wrote supposed sayings of what Jesus said and little things of knowledge that only the Gnostic people had. You know what I mean? They made up all these stories and stuff to try to sort of, make the Gnostic people more enlightened. So you can see already with that sort of how fake that those books were. But they were circulating a lot back in the early church, weren't they?
They were, but it was a literature that was circulating amongst Christians as well. And it was like novels or books that people were reading. and the point wasn't so much in historicity of those events, and I don't think that most of the Christians understood this as as historical facts, but as something that's good, educative, and yeah, it followed that kind of course where they did not. I don't think that they understood this as something that we would call, or the church would call later, canonical.
So, look, we've got a couple of questions from some of the viewers. I just wanted to see if you wanted to answer a few of them. There was a little bit more that we had, but I sort of had to condense them down. So, what are the dangers of these new religions in today's world?
Well, I would start really general here. What are the dangers, not just of these New Age religions, but the dangers of anything that is not God? But specifically of these, it is this this view that is taking you into something occultistic, that is separating you from this reality. And Christian perspective is, no, this world needs salvation. This world, I as a person have a body, and it is totally inseparable from my soul. The whole person needs salvation, so the whole world needs salvation. So it is not just one part of me that needs salvation. So, and that's why the problem with these New Age religions is that they so much emphasize the soul and the spiritual reality, and they do, or vice versa. Or vice versa, they would emphasize only, certain would emphasize only the body, and they would turn that into religion, or some sort of a sexual deviation, and all sorts of deviations can come out of it. It would have to be specific, more, what sort of New Age religion, because there is so many aspects of it now that you can find everywhere, wherever you go.
So the next one is, we know that some of the New Age religions try to channel their inner being with potential like chakra or meditation. How can this be dangerous? And what are the differences between like the New Age, like spiritual meditations that you might see with like yogas and all that sort of stuff, as comparison to like Christian prayer meditation?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know much about chakras. I'm really a lay person when it comes to that, and I was never interested in this, because it was all the time. It was kind of some sort of a magical thing that I always thought that it's totally stupid, to be honest, and it's dumb, and so I never dedicated too much attention to it. Never ever in my life. Yoga, for example, maybe because it is so much present here, maybe I would know more about that. But I know one thing, I really had problems with back, and then I went to see a chiropractor, and some would say, chiropractors are not real doctors and this and that, but it was helpful for me, and he gave me some exercises, and I was doing these exercises, and I felt fine. I really felt much better. Only later did I actually discover that these exercises and these positions are actually yoga positions. So are we to totally throw away, everything that comes from there? No, I would argue no, because it was helpful for me. If you understand this as an exercise that's good for you, and if you then it's fine. But if you turn this in the absolute center of your life, then it becomes a problem. Then it becomes the problem, because then that it comes from Buddhism, or other Eastern religions, who are absolutely neglecting the body, because the purpose of those exercises is actually to get out of the body. to leave the body and to come to nirvana, where you actually feel nothing, and when you become total nothingness. I mean, I find, before I was a Christian, I found this really attractive, and I said to myself, if I wasn't Orthodox Christian, I would probably be Buddhist, because Buddhism is atheism at the end of the day, because it does not have any faith in personal God. There is nothing like that. But the problem is, then death destroys everything. Death does destroy this material body that I have, and the problem is, I cannot communicate with you without my physical body. I couldn't see you, I couldn't hear you, I couldn't have a relationship, I couldn't love my wife, I couldn't have kids without. So all of this is immensely important. The problem is, when it becomes the center, then you have all sorts of deviation coming out of there. And so I would argue that there is no recipe. There is no recipe. Life is tough, and whoever promised you that life is going to be easy, the problem of this world is where we are addicted to good feelings. We think that we need to feel good all the time. Who promised you that? Why do we have this notion that we need to, are you happy? You always hear this question, are you happy? No, I'm not a happy person. And why should I be a happy person all the time? That's not the purpose of life. We see Christ suffering. And when Christ was suffering, when he was, Peter took the knife out and he wanted to fight. But Jesus said, no, this is exactly how things should go. Don't you think that I could call all the army of angels and they would protect me? No. This is how it's supposed to be.
That's a very
think
good
that we
point.
should always. So I think the problem of this world is really addiction to good feelings, and all the other addictions that we as sinners have, and I have it, and we all have it. We're all fellow sinners, as J.K. Chesterton says. We're all in the same boat, and we're all seasick.
You know what? That's a very good point there. That feeling of like life always has to be, we always have to be happy, and if you're not happy, why not? Because we're gonna, life is ups and downs. So, but definitely, I think helping with that is reading the Gospels and see what Jesus went through and what he told us to do and try to live it out for the glory of God, I believe. But yeah, no, that's a very good point, Father. I really like that. This question here is. So how important is the Old Testament scriptures which reveal the coming of Christ in light of these new religions?
Yeah, if there was no Old Testament, if it wasn't for the Old Testament, Jesus would be understood just as one poet, one philosopher, one nice guy. He said and he did many great things. And we know that's not true. That's not the authentic. That is not the authentic Christianity. The one that I was talking about, Saint Irenaeus. And Saint Irenaeus is when he's making his point, he keeps repeating, "I'm a disciple of Polycarp of Smyrna, and Polycarp is the disciple of John, who is the beloved friend of Jesus. So I get my knowledge directly from Jesus, and so this is." This is so important. What was the other question? Can you please repeat yourself?
Oh, yeah. So it was just how the Old Testament, like how important is it that the Old Testament scriptures...
that's right. Yes. Sorry. The Old Testament is immensely important because it is introducing us to Christ. Without the Old Testament, as I said, Christ would be just one of the poets and philosophers. And so, but with the Old Testament, you see, when in New Testament, there was a study done, there is theology behind that. Even in the Creed, when we say, and he was crucified for us under Pontius Pilate, and according to the scriptures. According to what scriptures? According to the Old Testament. When Jesus appears to Lucas and Cleopas on the way to Emmaus, he says there, and he opened to them the scriptures. There was no New Testament at that time. Jesus said, that's the day of resurrection. There was no other scriptures, but the Old Testament. He opened to them, and in all the Moses and prophets have said about him, he opened their minds. So yes, so I think if the Old Testament, what we today call the Old Testament, the apostles did not call it the Old Testament, let me tell you. If it was good for them, I think it's definitely good for us as well. So if they could figure out, just based on the Old Testament, that Jesus is the Messiah, the promised one, the Son of God, then we absolutely have to take it really, really seriously.
Oh, really good. Yeah. So, I mean, this one here is, as a parent, what steps can I take to ensure that my kids will continue to be Christian and live out their faith in this sort of secular world that's growing?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I'm trying to figure that out. I've got 4 kids.
It is a difficult one, though. It definitely is. It's a little bit.
I made so many mistakes, and so but I'll try. And I think these questions you should ask the people who do actually have kids. You learn on your mistake. I did say to I've got 14. My eldest is 14 years old, and my youngest is 3.5. And I did say to my eldest, you know what? You're the first 14 years old that I have, and so please, please forgive me for not knowing what to do with a 14 years old. I think you need to have a sincere relationship with your child. That's the first thing. Not in sort of a friendship. Your child can never be your best friend. Avoid that, please. You're a parent, and you'll always be a parent to your child, and
But
so
have
you
a good
cannot be your best
relationship.
friend. Your daughter, your son, whatever. I've got 2 daughters and 2 sons. They cannot be your best friend, and that's the wrong way. You're a parent. You're there to kind of point the direction and lead by
Discipline.
example. Okay, lead by example. As I said, that's how we started. Take your faith seriously. If you can only live your faith, you can lead by example. You need to remember yourself. I remember myself. I lived an atheistic life for the first 16 years of my life. Okay, and at some point, I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision. So God has called me in His own way, because it's not me who calls my children. Okay, God calls, not my children. Everyone. Apostle Paul says that God wants all people to be saved, and of course, He wants my children and your children to be saved.
Amen.
So God calls. What we as parents do is we do our best to make them to be responsible people, so that yes is a yes, as the scripture says, and no is a no. And I always told my children, come, whatever you did, come to me and say what you did, but do not lie. You will be punished for lying. You will not be punished for doing something naughty and bad and whatnot. If you come to me and you say it. But if you lie, no, then you will bear consequences anyways. That's, I think, what you need to, that you will bear consequences. You can as I said, if you take your faith seriously, maybe my grandmother did not know anything about theology. She went to church. She was fasting. She wasn't even she was fasting. She was going to church. She was receiving Holy Communion and pray every day. She did not know how to explain what she believed. Explaining the faith is called theology, and not everyone is called to be theologians. But passing down the faith to the next generation is called pretty much passing down your relationship that you have with Jesus, with Christ. So if you have this friendship with God, this friendship with Christ, you are passing down that, and you take this seriously. As I said, when I saw my grandmother praying in front of the icon, she would not interrupt this conversation that she had with God. I wasn't more important to her, even though she loved me dearly out of all grandkids, and I know that. But no, this was more important at that moment. No, this is more important. And so I think if you take your faith seriously, and if you need to give freedom to your kids. Okay. The other day, in our Serbian tradition, we have something that we call Slava. And Slava is a patron saint day. So a family celebrates a certain saint, like in Greece you have name days. But
Yes.
for us, it's the whole family that celebrates a certain saint. And it's a big day for us, really. My family celebrates St. John Chrysostom. And according to the old calendar, that was a few days ago, that was the 26th of November, or the 13th of November, called the old calendar. And the night before that, I said to my eldest daughter, you're not, as it was always the case, my kids were not going to school on that day, because we go to the church and then we have lunch and friends are coming and house is full and so on and so on. And we celebrate. And you will recognize Orthodox Christians wherever you have good wine and good food. Those are Orthodox Christians there. And yeah, well, because
That's
we know
true.
how to rejoice. We know what good life is, and so. And I said, but the priorities, we go to church and we'll come home and so on, and you're not going to school. And she says, no way, I'm going to school tomorrow. I said, no way, you're not going to school. She said, I have this and this and that, and I have to participate. There is a group, and we are doing this and that. And she goes to selected school, and I said, and then my wife took over, because I said no, and you can't do it by yourself. You have to work as a team with your wife. And she said, let me deal with this. And so because I couldn't. I said no, and that's it. I was really, really strict. But then she took over, and then she said to her, all right, if this is your choice. You see, you in a different way, you're dealing with a teenager, with someone who's 14, 16 years old, and someone who's 10 or 9 or before, my eldest did not have any choice. You're not going to school, and that's it. That's it. But now she wanted to go, and if I forbid her, no, well, that's going to be even harder. And so we let her. Mind you now how the situation develops. We wake up in the morning, and she's all dressed up for church, and says, you know what? I decided I'm not going to school today. You have to give freedom to your kids. Because if I was to force her to go to church, she would grunge and she would complain. And what kind of a going to church would that be?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right. So, but this is now when you have a teenager. When you have a teenager, you have to know how to. You have to spend time with your kids. But the problem in nowadays is people work too much. They want to have big houses in expensive suburbs, and for that you got to pay a price for that. You're not going to spend time with your kids, and you will not know your kid, and your kid will not know you. And then that's a problem. That's a problem. Every child is different. I've got 4. I have to deal in different way with all of them. And the trick is, I have to say, you always have to say to each and every, no matter how many children you have to say them secretly, I love you best. You're my favorite.
That is true. That is true. I do it to my kids too. But
and so
that's good. That's a really good point you bring there, Father. I have to agree with you there.
I could speak about this
question
for ages, because this is really my concern, because there is nothing more important for me than for my children to be Christians and to go to church. So I'm really proud because of my daughter, because she made this decision, not me. And I said, well, there is maybe a bit of my input there as well. Most of my wife, but maybe some of mine as well.
I mean, I say that to my kids all the time as well. I say, like, make God first. Whatever you're doing, just make God first all the time. So church has to be always priority. And my daughter, she's 8 years old. My son's 6.5. So when they go to church, sometimes they're at the liturgy there, and they're sort of, getting restless after a little bit. So I don't try to push it too much, because I don't want
No.
them to sort of go, Dad, like, I don't want to do it anymore. We sort of go there once a week for 1 hour and just get them used to that, so they can understand, the faith. And even though, like, they're still young now, they can't understand everything. I think, doing this will help them in the future. And then as they get older, they'll understand more about, who Christ is and what he did. And it's very important, I think, to bring up our kids.
Absolutely. In the Serbian church, we don't have pews, and so they can't sit. And so my wife's strategy was, because I'm a priest, I'm always serving, but my wife's strategy was 15 minutes in church, 15 minutes outside. And so they kind of dig. And
Well, that's
I'm not saying it works for everyone, but you can't be as rigid. That's what I'm trying to say. And brace yourself, Crisco, for when you get teenagers, because then you'll have to kind of make some
Please, God.
compromises. Yes.
I'll come and see you. I'll come and see you once a month. No,
Winter
that's
is
good.
coming.
Winter is coming, they said. But yeah, no. So going to that, it's a similar question, the next one. So do you think, like, the Orthodox Church can do more to attract the younger generation to the church, but without compromising the tradition?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, I think our program should be intellectual tradition. And it's not just an opinion, okay? There is a Pew Search, that's the biggest researching company in the US, and it's called Pew Search. And they've made, they said, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, they asked young people, why are they leaving church? This is all churches in general, because all churches have the same problem. And you might think, it's the scandals in the church, and you can hear, this priest has done that, and so on, especially the Catholic Church and so on. But we don't lack those ones as well, and this and that and this. But it's not. That's on the 5th spot. The first reason why young people that are leaving the church, they're saying, it doesn't get it goes against the science. It goes against the science. Bible and science don't get along. And it goes against that, and it's not scientific, and I'm just perplexed how we have dumbed down the faith. That's our problem. Our problem is dumbing down the faith. We have this huge, we're the church of Chrysostom, for example, Basil the Great, the most educated people that lived. We remember Jerome, Augustine, Gregory theologian, you name it. We have them.
Athanasius,
These.
Ignatius. Yeah.
Sorry?
Athanasius, Ignatius.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Irenaeus, and you go, Gregory Palamas, and all these pleiades of intellectuals, and we are kind of we're going with this Protestant view that and this is a Protestant view that confronts the Bible with science. We don't have that. We simply don't have that. I think we should emphasize that Bible does not go against the science. And you have this scientism today. Scientism is pretty much everything that science says that's relevant, that's true. I've got nothing against science. I'm using my phone, and that's why connection is so bad, and laptop and all these technology. Technology is great. I can't live without technology. The first thing I do in the morning, I take my phone and I check this and I emails and so on, and that's how we function. It's great. But once it takes over and becomes central, then that's the problem. The problem is that we have neglected humanities, and this society has neglected humanities. I'm not just talking about theology. I'm talking about philosophy, sociology, and all of these things. Now, I think this pandemic is a great opportunity, actually, because people have realized you can have all the technology available on the tip of your finger, but you're alone. What now? You don't have another human. You don't have another human being. You're alone, and you don't know how to be alone. And you ask yourself these questions about life and death, all these things that you were not asking yourself because you were distracting yourself, going to all these places of meetings, like, coffee bars, shops and restaurants and sporting events, and you were avoiding all these most important questions of your life that can exist, and you don't know the answers, and then you're meant, you go crazy. You go crazy. But theology, the church has these answers. And when you come to understand that you're never alone. The Bible says, in Prophet Isaiah says, when Bible wants to say how close two people are or two persons are, it says as a mother and child. But then in Prophet Isaiah we read, even if a mother forgets her child, the Lord your God will never forget you. So young people, and this is my message to all the young people, no, if you are considering the Orthodox Church, no, it's the longest standing, the oldest intellectual tradition in the Western world. And so we are the church of these highest intellectuals, and no, it does not go against science. Absolutely not. The Bible is Biblia. In Serbian we say biblioteka, which is a library. It's a library. It's a collection of books, and as in library, you have science fiction here. You have history here. You have you have all compartments of different genres. You can't take everything in one genre. That's why there is theology that will explain this to you and so on. So I think we can do more for young generations if we just listen to the research. This is not my opinion. As I said, the first reason why young people are leaving the church, and that's my experience as well, because I'm here a chaplain at the University of Wollongong, and I deal with lots of students, and so and I can see that. The first questions they ask me is about God and science and Bible and science and so on, and I think this is opposed to one another, and it's not. You see, all the spiritual life in the Orthodox Church that we do, sometimes you don't understand. Why do we have to go to church on Sundays? Why do we have to fast? Why do we have to go to confession? Why do we have to pray? All these disciplines are only for one reason, and that is opening up the doors of our heart. Because our hearts have become hard as rock and cold as ice. And so God cannot enter. These are the doors that we have closed or never used maybe in our life. The most important thing that you can now I'm going back to the question about how to raise kids, is to teach them that there is a heart. That's the most important organ in the human being, is the heart. The heart is the central organ of a human being. That's what you need to teach your kids. And God stands and he knocks. And maybe that door is somewhere down in some hallway, at the back, at the end of some hallway, and you have all the rubbish, all the things that you have put there in that hallway, and you can't reach that door. He stands and he knocks. He knocks patiently and knocks. And so all this spiritual discipline that we do, fasting and prayer, that's all removing of that rubbish that leads to that door, so we can open the door and he can enter. So if anyone wants to go to some other, you can't stop anyone. You can't stop anyone. He can't hear the call. But you see, also we have to examine ourselves. Did we do everything did we share really this relationship with Christ that we have, this friendship with Christ that we have? Did we really share this with the other person? Did we, as my grandmother, when you understand, when you take it for serious, when you open up to the other person, you say, oh, the Orthodox Church, that's beautiful. There is nothing more beautiful. The grace of God comes and it overwhelms you. And when you really share your own experience, when you open up yourself, truly yourself, not somebody else's experience, but truly yours experience, then you have to relieve freedom. Christ has left us freedom, and he forgave to all those who have stoned him and crucified him. His last words on the cross were, "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they do." But that's the other side of the coin. You must leave freedom. We do, and the other thing is also it's a different person who's sowing, and a different one who's reaping. So we are
No, definitely.
to sow the seed.
Definitely. I think as well, you have a lot of Christians that say or Christians that want to leave or that don't understand. They're actually, their understanding of the Bible, understanding their own religion is really, really poor. And they're really saying things they don't really understand. So I think my thing is, if you really have to try understand your faith as best you can. And if you're not sure about something, which we all have questions, is to ask, your spiritual father or do a bit more research, because there's so many people that just give up on their faith without even understanding.
Crisco, it's not about knowledge. It's about opening up the heart. Remember, the whole job and business of the church is read hundreds of times the road to Emmaus. The road to Emmaus. Two of them are on a journey to Emmaus. Jesus comes to them. They don't know who he is. He interprets the scripture for them. They have absolutely no idea who he is. You know when their eyes are open? In the Holy Communion. When he broke the bread and he gave them and they took, and then their eyes were open. But then he disappeared. Why did he disappear? Because he was inside of them. There was no need for him to be there anymore. They have become Christ bearers from that moment. And that's what we need to be, Christ bearers, sharing this bread of life. So we do the interpretation of the scripture and all of that knowledge. It didn't work for the apostles. The church, the experience of the divine liturgy. That's the beauty of the Orthodox Church. That's the beauty of the Orthodox Church. That's the highest possible value that we have, and we have. That's the crown jewel of the church, and we have decorated it with so many other jewels and so on. And when you enter the Orthodox Church, you can see you're entering into some other dimension. All the beautiful frescoes and icons and vestments and chanting and all of that. It leads you into another world.
Okay, that was beautiful, Father. Yeah, thank you so much. That'll do us for today. Father Branco, thanks for joining me. I really enjoyed this chat. Want to thank you for your time, because I know you're really busy as well. I would love to have you back on again sometime soon to talk about other topics, because there's so many topics I would love to talk to you about if you're available.
Sure.
So thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you for inviting me. It was really a pleasure and honor.
It was believe me, it was my pleasure. Thank you very much once again. And thank you for everyone who's watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe. May our risen Lord bless you today and always. Catch you next time.
Amen.